Hi, welcome to the Divine Insight Show. Thank you so much for joining us wherever and whenever you're doing so. I'm very excited to introduce you to my guest this week, Susan Shumsky. She's a best-selling author and has dedicated her life to helping people take command of their lives in highly effective, powerful, positive ways. She's the author of 17 books and is a pioneer in the human potential field. She spent several decades teaching thousands of people meditation, prayer, affirmation, and intuition. Her books have been published in several languages worldwide, and several were #1 Amazon.com bestsellers. She's a highly respected spiritual teacher, award-winning author, and founder of Divine Revelation, a unique field-proven technology for contacting the divine presence, hearing and testing the inner voice, and receiving clear divine guidance. And for 2 decades, her mentor was Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, guru of the Beatles and of Deepak Chopra. She served on Maharishi's personal staff for 6 years, and I'm so thrilled to have her on the show today to talk about 2 of her books. Susan, thanks so much for being here with us, and welcome to the show.
I'm just so thrilled to be here with you today, Travis. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, you bet. And so for those of you watching, we're going to talk about these 2 books here, dive deep into them. For those of you listening, the first book is Chakras, the big book of Chakras and Chakra Healing, and the other one, Third Eye Meditation. So first, I understand that you had the opportunity to participate at the forefront of the spiritual revolution in the 60s. How did that happen?
Well, I was a hippie. It was the 60s. I was living in the San Francisco Bay Area. And those of us who were flower children, which is what I was, we were seeing higher states of consciousness. We were seeking nirvana. I know people think that it was all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, but in fact, it was about higher consciousness. And our gurus at that time were Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert, who later became Ram Dass. And they wrote a book called The Psychedelic Experience. They told us to turn on, tune in, and drop out. And they said that we could reach these higher states of consciousness through LSD. That was the premise of their book, The Psychedelic Experience. Yes, it was. We did reach some different states of consciousness through LSD, but unfortunately, I also had a psychotic break as a result of LSD. So it was not entirely positive for me. But eventually I did learn meditation. I learned how to practice transcendental meditation. And Maharishi Mahesh Yogi was the founder of that. And I ended up living with him in his various ashrams for over 2 decades. And I was on his personal staff for 6 years, as you mentioned.
That's amazing. And you also developed your own specific method, which you've called the Divine Revelation. Can you talk a little bit about what that is and perhaps a bit about what led you to develop that in the first place?
Divine Revelation is a way to listen to the still small voice within, develop your intuition, develop your clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient skills, and also have direct contact and communication with the divine presence in whatever form you believe that to be. It's also about learning how to tell the difference between that true voice of spirit, that true divine voice, and other voices in your mind, how to test whether the message that you're getting is the real thing. So that's what Divine Revelation is. And I learned the method from Dr. Peter Meyer of San Diego and Ann Meyer. And they were teaching way back when I learned, way long time ago. In the olden days. So I learned from them. And then I left the ashram and I started teaching this other form of meditation, which I liked better than transcendental meditation. And I started writing books. Now I have 17 books in English, 34 foreign books. I've won 31 book awards. So I've written a lot of books.
Well, let's dive into one of those, and this is the recent version of the Big Book of Chakras, How to Unlock Your 7 Energy Centers for Healing, Happiness, and Transformation. So for those of you who might be new to the field of, say, energy medicine or the subtle energy body, might not be familiar with the term chakra. Can you explain what a chakra is and why it's important to know them and how to work with them?
First of all, a chakra is a chakra, not a chakra.
Chakra.
The chakra. So chakra is a Sanskrit word that means wheel. Now let's describe exactly what that is. What's that all about? Okay, so we have this gross physical body that we inhabit. We also have a subtle body. And in that subtle body, which pervades, permeates, and surrounds your physical body, there are several layers. In India, they call it pancha kosha, meaning 5 sheaths. So we have this physical body, that's one of the sheaths. Then we have a vital energy body called pranamaya kosha, and that consists of prana, meaning life force energy. In China, they call it chi, and in Japan, they call it ki. So this life force energy is flowing through that particular subtle body. I'll just briefly mention the other subtle bodies as well. There's the manomaya kosha, which is your mental body. There is the vijnanamaya kosha, which is your intellect ego body. And there is the anandamaya kosha, which is your causal body. So those traditionally are the 5 bodies that we inhabit when we are in incarnation, as we are now. So this pranamaya kosha, this vital energy body, consists of these pathways of or conduits of energy. They're called nadi in India, and they're called meridian in China. And this subtle life force energy, which, by the way, is keeping you alive, it gives you heat, it gives you motion. This pranic energy, in fact, in the ancient scriptures of India, it is said that when prana is in the body, that is what is defined as life. And when prana leaves the body, that is what is defined as death. So prana flowing through the subtle body means healthy, happy, charismatic, magnetic, all really positive things when you have greater and greater prana flowing through your subtle body. So I was talking about the conduits of subtle energy. When they come together and intersect in a plexus, that's called a chakra. Chakra means wheel. It has a hub, which means it has a center of pranic energy, and it has spokes, which means radiations of pranic energy coming from the hub. So that's why it's likened to a wheel. There are 7 major chakra in your subtle body, and there are 7 other minor chakra that I talk about that are mentioned in the ancient scriptures of India. When I first wrote this book, I went back to the original scriptures, the Sanskrit scriptures of India, to find the most authentic information I could find about this topic of the chakras.
That's really incredible. Thank you. And I know that you also talk about the Kundalini and its relationship to the chakras. Can you explain a little about what the difference is between the Kundalini system, if there is one, and the chakra system?
Yes, actually, it's all part of the same pranic energy that flows through the subtle body. You have to understand that this subtle body is in a different dimension. It is not physical. If a physician or if anyone would dissect a corpse, they would not find a chakra or a nadi or a meridian or an acupressure point or anything like that. They can't find that in your physical body. It is in a subtle body that's actually in a different dimension. So this Kundalini energy, so Kundalini literally means curled up. That's what it means. Curled up. So it's often called the mystic coil or the serpent power that's curled up, when a serpent sleeps, it goes into this coil. So Kundalini is usually asleep. In most people, in average individuals, Kundalini is completely asleep, and it is lodged in what's called root bulb, which is below root chakra, the base chakra, the chakra that's at the base of your spine. So Kundalini is coiled up there, and it is asleep in most people, but you can force it to wake up. And when it wakes up, it goes through a specific conduit of energy, or we call it nadi in India. It goes through this specific nadi called Sushumna nadi, which this energy travels up through the median of the spinal canal all the way up to the top of your head, remembering that it's not in your physical body, but that's its location is in that vicinity. So when that energy rises up, it awakens your chakras, opens your chakras, it awakens your super normal abilities, it awakens your spiritual gifts. And then when it reaches the top, above the top of your head, all the way, up the spine and then up to the top of your head, then you are experiencing divine union or yoga. The word yoga means divine union.
That's really beautiful. And so what's new in this updated version from the previous versions?
The first version of that book came out in 2003. It was called Exploring Chakras. Then the next version came out, I don't know when, several years ago. It's called The Power of Chakras. And then this most recent version just came out in November of 2019. And this is the big book of chakras and chakra healing. Well, it's a bigger book and it has more in it, actually. It has a couple extra chapters in it. So there's more information in it. And some of the mistakes from the past were corrected and so on. So really it is a better version of that book.
It's pretty incredible, and thank you. It's just so comprehensive. What I love about your book is you provide so many very specific, practical, easy to use and easy to apply exercises that people can really experience shifts in their bodies. And it's so dense with information, and it's the most comprehensive and complete guide I know that I've ever seen.
It is, definitely. It's like an encyclopedia of the chakras.
Yeah,
it has everything you ever wanted to know about chakras. It also has everything you didn't ever want to know about chakras. Both.
All of the chakra things. Yeah. Is there anything, how do you suggest that people use the book in their lives? Do you suggest that they just go cover to cover, or how would you suggest people dive into it?
I suggest that they read it cover to cover because it starts very basic and then it builds up from there. And it gets very, very esoteric as you go along. So it's important to start from the beginning. If you try to start in the middle, you might get lost. And then as you come to the exercises that I suggest that you actually practice them. And then later, after you've read the book, you can go back and use those practices again. There are breathing exercises in the book. That's called pranayama. There are bandhas. Those are muscular locks. And there are meditation in there. Their affirmation is in there. All different kinds of techniques to help you to open your chakras, awaken your Kundalini, and develop your spiritual self.
Really beautiful. Thank you. And before we move on to the other book we're going to talk about today, is there anything else that you want to share about the big book of chakras before we move on?
Well, it's very highly illustrated. And illustrations always help. There's a lot of charts and graphics as well as illustrations that I personally did because I'm an artist. So I did pictures of the chakra deities and the yantras and all these different, the different elements, the elemental deities and all these things that are in the book. It's quite vast. It's a big book. That's why it's called the Big Book of Chakras.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, and it's great knowing that you're also the artist. That's really incredible. I'm going to go back with that in mind as well. I think that's so beautiful and so rare and unique. It adds a lot to the book too. So with respect to the third eye meditations that you have, it's really a guidebook allowing people to open the doorway to infinite consciousness. That's a big endeavor right there. So, and you say that this is the book that you've always wanted to write, despite all the others that you've also written. Why is that?
Simply because anyone can take this book and read it and have profound experiences of their true higher self. And even better, if they actually make a recording of the meditations that are in this book, they'll have even a better experience because then they can just sit comfortably, close their eyes, and listen to the guided meditations, which will take them very deep, deep into meditation. And the book doesn't just cover our own spiritual practices for our individual well-being and individual heightened awareness. It also delves into how you can contribute to the planet. And all these kinds of meditations and visualizations that you can do that will create peace on earth, that will create more awareness of ecology and all of the things that are vital for us to transform in this world at this time.
That's really beautiful. Thank you. And you got to a question I was going to ask you in a minute, but as you're talking about the way that you develop these meditations for people to, I love this unique aspect where you ask people to just record essentially their own voice, reading the meditations and then going back to it. And I think there's something very unique and powerful about hearing your own voice with those words versus, like, say, even Morgan Freeman, for example, or someone else doing their own sort of guided meditation. A lot of folks do, they lead their own meditations, but this is so cool. Was that part of your intent as well in developing them in that way?
Absolutely. And by the way, if you want, you can buy an audiobook of the same book. You don't have to record it yourself, but recording it yourself does have a lot of advantages, especially, as you mentioned, listening to your own voice leading you into the meditation.
Really beautiful. Thank you. So when you talk about consciousness and personal or individual expansion,
yes,
what do you mean as it relates to the third eye?
The third eye is one of our chakra. We have 7 major chakra, as I said, and we have 7 other chakra that are discussed in my book, The Big Book of Chakras and Chakra Healing. So let's just briefly mention the 7 major chakras. There's the base chakra at the base of the spine, which is involved with excretion, elimination of waste. And then there's the pelvic chakra, which is in the area of your sexual organs, which is involved with procreation. Then there's the navel chakra, and that's in the solar plexus, and that one is involved with digestion. There's the heart chakra, which is in your heart, which is involved obviously with breathing, the lungs and the heart moving, and the organs in that area. And then there's the throat chakra, which is involved with your expression, specifically artistic expression and voice and all of that. And then there's the 6th chakra, which is the third eye chakra, which is in the middle of your head in the area of the pineal gland. It also goes into the forehead and the back of the head. And then there's the crown chakra, which is above your head. And that is the 7th chakra. And that is involved with expansion of consciousness, unbounded awareness, and that so on. So the 6th chakra, every one of the chakras has a planet associated with it. And the 6th chakra, the third eye, the planet is Jupiter. Jupiter is the planet that is the preceptor. In fact, in Sanskrit, the word Jupiter is guru.
Wow.
That's the word for Jupiter in Sanskrit, guru. So the inner guru is right there in your third eye in the pineal gland area. And so it is your intuition, your inner teacher, your insight, and your spiritual gifts, clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient abilities, because you're seeing with the third eye, you're seeing things that are hidden from view. And I use the term seeing in a broad sense, because you don't just see, you also feel and hear when you're receiving intuition, when you're receiving things that are hidden from view that you can see through the third eye. So some people see more, that means clairvoyance. Some people hear more, like hearing words that come into your mind. And some people feel more, like getting gut feelings, just having sensing or knowing, that type of thing. So there's clairvoyance, clairaudience, and clairsentience. And those are the 3 basic ways that we get messages from the still small voice within. And that still small voice is the inner guru, and it is located there in your 6th chakra, the third eye chakra. So third eye meditations helps you to develop these spiritual gifts and abilities.
That's really neat. And so in addition to, that leads me into my very next question about what can people expect to experience as they practice the meditations, visualization exercises, and affirmations that you lay out?
Well, I'm just going to go through the topics that are covered in this Third Eye Meditation book so that you'll see that it's not just about individual evolution, it's also about planetary evolution. So chapter 1, open the doorway to infinite consciousness. And then the next chapter, open the doorway to guided meditation. The next is to divine love and light. The next is to forgiveness and gratitude. Then the next, inner strength and protection. Then inner peace and contentment. And then opening the doorway to meaningful relationships. And then to a purposeful, authentic life. Then to health and energy. Then to meaningful abundance. Then to real power and true success. Then to universal love, then to ecological balance, and opening the doorway to world peace, and then to intuition and wisdom, to wholeness and oneness, to spiritual lifting, and finally to ascension. So it really goes through the gamut of what you can experience both individually and in the planetary vision.
That's really incredible. And how did you develop these exercises that you have in the book?
There are a few of them that are traditional mantras, and there are some of them that are known affirmations that are already known. But most of it I received directly from Spirit with a capital S. So most of them are just received, divinely revealed, however you want to describe it. That just came from from the higher aspect of my being. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. And how do you suggest that people go through the exercises and practices that you lay out? Is there an order that is helpful or necessary, or should people just do one that calls most strongly to them? I
recommend that when you first read the book, that you follow it. Each one, you just go through each one individually, because there's definitely an order to this book. There's definitely a reason that it's laid out in the way that it is. And as you go through it, you'll develop different parts of your being, and you'll heal various aspects of your life going through it. And then after you've gone through it, then you can go back and use some of the different meditations that you feel that you still need help with, or that you really enjoy. Some of them are really just for you to experience a deep state of inner peace. Some of them are for healing specific things that need to be healed. So it's very rich. This book is very rich in what it offers for people.
Yeah, it really is. And of all the practical, or excuse me, the practice meditations that you lay out, was there one in particular that kind of surprised you in that development as it came through in your own personal experience, that you might briefly describe for viewers and listeners, that they might sort of do a mini one?
Oh, what I'd like to do is I'd like to just teach right now a simple affirmation that anyone can use that will definitely transform your life if you use it on a daily basis. It's very powerful, especially for people that have problem being energy sponge. An energy sponge is a person who absorbs energy around them as a sponge absorbs water. And they feel like as they go through their day, they feel that every person they meet is like a vampire, energy vampire, just draining them of their energy. And then by the end of the day, all they can do is just lie in their bed. It just, that is just being sapped from all the different vibrations around us in our everyday life, being overly sensitive to that. That's an energy sponge. So I have the cure for that, and let's learn it now, because it's useful for anyone that's an energy sponge, but it's actually useful for anyone who wants to experience greater integration and inner strength in their everyday life, and to feel better about themselves, especially when they go into situations where they feel a bit nervous, such as meeting a person for a new person, or having an interview, or any kind of situation where you feel like you have to appear, before people. This would be a great thing for you to speak audibly. By the way, in reference to affirmations, I always recommend that you speak them audibly, not just in your head. It's better to do that. And in fact, in the book, in this book, Third Eye Meditations, you go, whoops, whoops, it got away from me. This book, Third Eye Meditations, it does tell you, gives you instructions on which ones to actually speak audibly, which of the meditations or affirmations in the book to say audibly.
Awesome.
Okay, so here's this affirmation I'm going to teach you. It's called the self-authority affirmation. It's about self-empowerment. It goes like this. I am in control. I am one with God. I am the only authority in my life. I am divinely protected by the light of my being. I close off my aura and body of light to the lower astral levels of mind, and I open to the spiritual world. Thank you, God, and so it is.
Beautiful. I could feel that as you were saying that. I can really appreciate you sharing that one, and I hope that folks use it.
Absolutely, use it. Your life will change if you use that affirmation. I promise.
Yeah, definitely. I think, a lot of people, the terminology a lot of people use is like empathic or feeling other people's feelings and stuff. And I think that is so good because we're really amped up. People are really there's a lot of conflict going on. There's a lot politically going on in this country right now. There's a lot more hate. There's these notifications on our phone going off all the time telling us what to prioritize in that moment, which isn't usually ourselves, it's some other thing. And I think that's so great to just constantly remind yourself you are the authority. It's so beautiful. So thank you, I really appreciate that. As we get to the close of the show, is there anything else that you'd like people to know about this other book, the one that's Third Eye Meditations?
Well, guided meditation, which is what this book is filled with, it's filled with guided meditations, is the easiest way to meditate. I often call it the do nothing program, because you do nothing and less than nothing. You just follow the words, follow the instructions, and that's how simple it is. When people try to meditate on their own, and if they're not really proficient in meditation, they find that they get frustrated because they're not sure what to do, really.
Right.
With guided meditation, you know exactly what to do, step by step. Okay, now close your eyes, and now this, and now that, and you're led step by step, moment by moment, through every meditation. And each meditation is like a practice, so you're doing this practice simply by listening and following. And it's so easy, effortless, and joyous. It's totally fun. And it is so comforting, and you find a lot of solace and peace and bliss. Actually, you find great inner happiness when you practice meditation. There's been scientific studies on the effects of meditation and the incredible benefits that people get from doing it. So this is a way that you can do it and not worry about how to do it. You just do it.
Yeah, can't do it wrong if you're following the guide.
That's right.
Well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure having you on. How can people reach you or learn more about you and get a copy or copies of your books?
Well, my books are available anywhere. I have 17 books in print, and obviously the major book outlets is where you can get books, such as Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Target and different places that sell books. And also, my website is drsusan.org, drsusan.org. And I have another website. It's divinetravels.com. That's plural on the travels, divinetravels.com, where we have tours and to sacred destinations, cruise ship, holistic seminars, at sea, you know, big events that I produce. So check that out. You might enjoy coming to one of those events. Divinetravels.com.
Sounds beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time, sharing your wonderful work, and for being with us today on the show.
Well, I enjoyed it, Travis. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You bet. And thank you all for watching and listening. It's no accident that you're here. Take great care of yourself, and you've been here watching the Divine Insight Show.